Every once in a while, something lands in the Rob Cave that makes me do a double take. The SOAYAN EXR1 is that product. Show it to literally anyone, and the response you'll get is, "Nice Bluetooth speaker, bro." Wrong. It's a fully functional mini PC that just happens to be wearing a speaker as a disguise. Now, it's not the first mini PC to include a speaker, it's just the first one that doesn't sound like a canned telephone from 1987. And the whole computer living inside it rent-free is a bonus. Well, actually, it's the main event. So the usage case with this one is pretty interesting. After experiencing a bunch of speakers in mini PCs only suitable for phone calls, I was pretty impressed with the SOAYAN's sound quality. Even when I turned it up to maximum volume, which is enough for a modest living room, the sound wasn't distorted. There's no subwoofer though, so doof doof music won't hit hard, but for its size, sound quality is good. On the top of the speaker is some RGB lighting bling, which isn't annoyingly bright and can be turned off in the BIOS. The computer speaker, or Comspeaker as I'm going to call it, has a cloth style mesh wrapped around it with only the ports exposed. Inside it is an AMD Ryzen 8745HS, the best choice out there at the moment for a CPU with good single and multi-core performance while backing it up with decent integrated graphics. SOAYAN's EXR1 is priced at $529 for the 1TB SSD, 32GB RAM pre-build, which is similar to other minis on the market with the same configuration. Apart from the Comspeaker, a HDMI cable and a 19V 120W compact power supply is included. Okay, now for the ports, which are all on the back. There's a 3.5mm audio jack for when you don't want your questionable music taste broadcast to the entire room. There's also a power button, clear CMOS, and a USB 4 port pulling double duty with power delivery and display support. 3 USB Type A ports run at 10 gigabit speeds, sitting alongside one lonely USB 2.0 port. We've got HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 2.1. Rounded out with 2.5 gigabit LAN and a barrel jack power input. Oh, and SOAYAN has tossed in Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth, but no, that doesn't make it a Bluetooth speaker. Remember, it's a Comspeaker. Here's where we would typically play doctor and take a look at its insides, but SOAYAN informed me beforehand that I won't be able to open it without damaging the unit. I wanted to see for myself, and that looks to be the case. All that can be removed is the bottom rubber ring, without ripping off the cloth mesh wrapped around the unit. That's a shame, and I'd like to see a future version that allows you to open it. Maybe with screws on the rear I/O that once removed lets you pull that section out. So what that means is you're not going to be upgrading or replacing components unless you're okay with messing up its casing. And having damaged more than my share of minis in my lifetime, I'm not keen to do it here. Sorry, not sorry. What I can tell you is that there's a 1TB M.2 WAD-POSIT NVMe drive with Gen 3 speeds and 32GB of Hoge DDR5 RAM running at 4800 megatransfers. This CPU's DDR5 support maxes out at 5600 megatransfers, so it's going to affect performance. Windows 11 Pro is included, and the Malwarebytes scan came back clean with no nasties. The hardware inside is well supported by Ubuntu, and you won't have any issues using it instead of Windows. And so, we head into the benchmarks. Cinebench single-core CPU scored slightly lower than other minis, but it's so small, it's nothing to worry about. Multi-core out of the box is also lower, and setting the Comspeaker to performance mode in the BIOS added very little. Geekbench single-core is fine, pretty much matching the competition. While multi-core, it has a lower score out of the box, with performance is close to other minis with the same CPU. The short H.264 video encoding test shows a slightly lower performer by a few percent. And we see the same with the longer AV1 CPU encoding test. Notice that even with performance mode enabled, it still trails behind the other 8745HS minis. Alright then, let's see how it holds up with encoding the same video using the EGPU to do the heavy lifting. It's around the lowest performer, and the DDR5 4800 is a big reason why. An AI CPU workload is up next, and the SOAYAN is slightly behind the other minis with similar CPUs. Unsurprisingly, with the AI GPU test, it has a lower result due to the slower RAM. And we can also see that in the graphics result. The low score is a mix of slower RAM and lower power limit. In performance mode, there's a noticeable improvement, still behind other Radeon 780M minis with faster RAM, as it should be getting around 8,000 points in Firestrike, almost 3,000 in Timespy, and the high 2000s in Steel Nomad Lite. Minis with DDR5 5600 memory are about 12% faster, which is substantial. If you wanted to take the Comspeaker to a mate's house and plug it into a monitor, you can watch movies or even game on it. As long as those games are esports titles, or older AAA games at 1080p low if running natively with no upscaling.
Let's play. I've got a quarry to catch. Damn it, Karlak. Where have you put me? 2 steps at a time.
Emulators work pretty well too. I guess you could also lug a USB-C eGPU and use the USB 4 port on the Comspeaker if you really wanted to game. Here I'm testing it and it works fine. Since I can't see if the RAM has any cooling, I decided to test if the temps hold up. And after an hour in a hotter environment than usual, the frame rate held up fine. The code compiling benchmark shows a lower performer than the competition. And that's also the case in Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, but the differences aren't huge. Next up is the 3D Mark storage benchmark. I can tell you that there's a decent performing Gen 3 NVMe drive inside, but there are many Gen 4 SSDs that perform better overall, which this mini does support. The SSD temp held up fine during the thrash test. It's unlikely to thermal throttle. While it's not a Bluetooth speaker, it has Bluetooth, and its range is very good with one of the highest spots on the chart. Wireless at 12 meters or 39 feet from the router using the 5G band didn't have any dropout or latency issues. Idle power draw from the wall is pretty average. And the maximum is nothing unexpected. In the benchmarks we saw that performance mode didn't actually add much performance, but it does add more watts. The hard limit for CPU temp is set at 90C and it thermal throttles to keep it there. However, as you might have already seen in the game tests, it runs pretty hot even when it's not fully under load. That's likely because fan noise is surprisingly low. It doesn't matter which power mode you use, it didn't hit above 35 dBA, which makes this a quiet mini PC. After measuring the cylindrical volume, we get a result of 1.5 liters, which is on the large side for mini PCs, but not for a speaker. The delete key on startup enters the BIOS. In power configuration, you'll find AC failure resume and wake on LAN. The power mode is also here. It's set to quiet by default, which isn't common, and that affects CPU and GPU results. I think balance would be a good option, but I don't have unlimited testing time per unit, and I didn't try it out. As expected, overclocking the RAM was no bueno. AMD CBS and MBIO common options has the iGPU VRAM configuration option. Back in advanced, you can change the RGB LED or turn it off. Hardware monitor lets you tweak the fan curve, and that's about it for the BIOS. So now we come to the checklist. I wouldn't expect this Comspeaker to be made of metal, and it sure isn't. Build quality and price is fine. It's not available as bare bones, but comes with a compact power supply. You can't mount it, but it does have USB 4 and supports USB-C PD. There's no Oculink or dual LAN. It's not only not easy to open, but designed not to be opened at all. And so it's getting a cross for not having 2 or more storage slots or replaceable RAM and storage. SOAYAN really should have maxed out the memory spec with DDR5 5600. Performance and CPU cooling aren't the greatest. It runs hot during moderate tasks and thermal throttles, but if you're planning to use it for browsing the web, movies and music, it'll be plenty fine. The SSD temps were okay, and the RAM didn't overheat during my testing. Bluetooth and wireless range is really good, as is fan noise, which is much lower than a lot of the competition. I couldn't find any BIOS updates or driver downloads on the website, but the BIOS options on the Comspeaker itself are good. SOAYAN includes a standard 12-month warranty, so tallying that up, it ticks 15 of 30 points on the checklist. SOAYAN's EXR1 is a unique product best suited for those who never look inside their computer, just want something that computes things and aren't fussed about peak performance. While it doesn't run cool, it's quiet and has a decent set of ports on it. Speaker quality is the best I've heard from a mini PC so far, and it's not even close. If the EXR1 Comspeaker interests you, find it linked in the video description and check out the affiliate links, which really help the channel out with doing in-depth reviews like this one. And this is normally where I'd send you to a related video, but the EXR1 is pretty unique, so instead, I'll let YouTube decide what's best for you right here. Cheers!